Hello? You. Yeah, you. What are you doing? Yeah, I'm talking to you, average Rivers of Blood user. I would like to teach you a few things. Would you be opposed to that? What do you mean you don't need to learn anything? I'm sure you can learn something, right? You know, you could just learn how to use different weapons and how to, like, improve your build and oh, and there he goes. Well, I guess we'll have to make do without average Rivers of Blood fan. However, all of you, I'm sure you can learn a thing or two. Or perhaps just in general hear about my little rant about bleed, stun, and you. Or, in other words, you, bleeding, and stunned. Let's get to it. So to start off with, let's talk a bit about the build I'm going to be using in this video, and explain why I do what I do. So first of all, here are my stats. As you'll see, this is a bleed build. I know, quite shocking, right? This is Tomoe the Leech, one of my old DS3 characters that I remade here in Elden Ring. The main point of this character is to sort of show what you can do with a bleed build without just resorting to L2 spam, in essence. Although I should clarify that the main weapons I'm going to be using here, as I'll be showing in a moment, is the Cleanrot rapiers, specifically with seppuku. I know some of you are already cringing at the fact that they have seppuku on them, but you have to win somehow, right? The thing that I'll be showing you about this weapon is that somehow, with seppuku, you should be able to reliably, for the most part, trigger instant bleed. Although all the other weapons here in the inventory can do something similar if used correctly. That being said, let's move on to the clip so you guys can learn a bit about why bleed is so fucking insane. So here to start off with, we have what I would say is putting my money where my mouth is. This clip is meant to show just how fucking busted Cleanrot rapiers with seppuku can be. But also just in general how good the rapiers when power stances are. In this instance I'll be showing off what happens when you, well, let's just say, apply it to phantoms and a host. I am using Crimson Whirl and the bubble. So essentially I take no magic damage, I actually heal from magic damage, and I have Tears of Denial on while I'm, like, right after I use my flask. Specifically because of the way this build works, I can pretty much trade however I want, whenever I want. Shields are just nothing more than a joke, really. But this right here is what I want to try and emphasize about this build. This man here ends up being bled in every hit, as you can see, and therefore stun locked. And this is what I find the most absurd about bleed right now. Here you'll be seeing that not only can you just kinda out-trade anything you want, but this build and just bleed in general, when used with rapiers, just has such swing potential. Like the host here, what could he have done here? He couldn't really have done anything, that's the answer. The big problem with bleed seems to be the fact that the stun, which is what makes it viable, is also part of why it becomes so hard to balance here. Like, how are you supposed to balance around high damage and stun on bleeds that happen this fast? I should point out that this could have been way worse. Even with the footage you're seeing, this is still all done with little to no poise, and without Mimic Tier Mask, for example. This could have been so much more abhorrent to fight and just to watch in general. And the thing is, somehow this build will survive things that it really should not have any business doing. For example here, I was outplayed pretty heavily early on, and nonetheless I hit this phantom like what, 5 times and they're dead instantly. No more effort there. Took me a second to kill a phantom. Now I turn around and I can pretty much do the same again. So those 2 phantoms died in about a combined estimate of 3 seconds. And then the host is all by themselves and they die instantly. Like, how is this supposed to be fair? I don't see how it can be fixed without some radical changes here. My overall biggest problem is definitely with bleed here at lower levels, because there is no real counterplay. Of course, there's not much counterplay at higher levels either, but How is a new player supposed to counter this? I did this for maybe an hour, I think, and I felt downright unclean when I was done. And I'm normally fine with doing this shit, but this felt bad. Like, you learn such bad habits. Bleed is just overall a bit too strong, and I think players are not really realizing that they're doing themselves a disservice using it. I also very briefly want to touch on just how fucking stupid good Crimson Whirl is. If you don't already have it, I cannot recommend getting it highly enough. Because in this instance here, this entire party does holy damage. And as you'll see, they heal me more than they damage me whenever they hit me. This party was just statistically not allowed to win because they could not have killed me in the time they had, even when they had me surrounded. I think it's slightly busted, but I'm honestly all for it. I'm all for making people have to diversify their attack damage. And it only lasts like, what, 12 seconds? I think it's perfectly fair. Even if a bit cheeky at times. That being said, I'll stop ranting about Bleed for now. The rest of the video will just be music and clips of me doing war crimes against players, basically. Hope you enjoyed, and I'd love to hear you guys' feedback in the comments and hear what you guys think about Bleed. I'm sure not a whole lot of people are ready to defend it, but do let me know.